All right, welcome back to another explainer. So let's just jump right in, because today we are unpacking what is honestly one of the most mind-bending financial systems I have ever come across. We're talking about the currency that literally isn't there. We're going to look at how inmates engineered this entirely invisible, incredibly sophisticated banking system out of thin air, completely bypassing the massive official systems that were literally designed to control them.
Picture this scenario for a second. You're an inmate. You've got a very real debt, and it absolutely has to be paid on the outside in the real world by tomorrow. But here's the massive catch. Cash is strictly contraband. You can't just whip out your phone and Venmo a buddy. You obviously can't walk down to the local bank branch. You are locked in a cage, entirely cut off from the global financial network. So, how do you do it? How do you move real wealth from inside a prison cell out into the free world? Well, the answer is an absolute masterclass in human ingenuity and shadow economics.
But look, before we can really grasp this ghost economy, we have to look at Section 1, the official story. Basically, it's a broken, incredibly expensive system that forced inmates to innovate in the first place.
See, inmates don't get standard checking accounts. They have trust or commissary accounts. If a family member wants to send them money, they can't just wire it over. They have to pass through these official gatekeepers. We're talking private companies like JPay, ViaPath, Access Corrections, who hold these super lucrative state contracts. And it's a brilliant choke point, really. They control the entire flow of money. Every single dollar that moves through them is tracked, heavily monitored, and entirely subject to being seized by the prison for various fines or fees.
And because it's a captive market, where else are you going to go? The costs are just astronomical. It basically acts as a 35% tax. Imagine a struggling family trying to send just $20 to a loved one, and they get hit with a fee pushing $7. To put that into perspective, it's like buying a coffee and paying a surcharge that costs as much as the drink itself. This totally predatory environment, it didn't stop the money from flowing. Actually, it acted as the ultimate catalyst for a massive financial rebellion.
So, to get around those official channels, inmates had to create their own physical cash. Let's move to Section 2, Macs, Soups, and Stamps, the physical prison economy.
Okay, so for decades, cigarettes were the undisputed gold standard of prison currency, right? But when smoking bans swept through the system in the 90s and 2000s, that entire economy just collapsed overnight. They desperately needed a new standard, which led to this wild, tiered physical cash system. The new gold tier? Instant ramen noodles, universally known as soups, sitting at about 59 cents a pop. An inmate's actual net worth is literally measured by the stack of ramen hiding in their locker. Now, if you need to settle a bigger debt, you move up to the silver tier. Foil pouches of mackerel, or macs, worth about $1. And for crossing the border to the outside, postage stamps, because they hold their exact face value both inside and outside the walls. But here's where they hit a huge logistical wall. Physical stuff like soups and macs, great for buying a quick haircut or paying a guy to sweep your cell. But ramen is incredibly bulky. If you owe somebody $500, you can't just discreetly hand over a literal mountain of noodle packets in the yard. To truly run a shadow economy, these guys desperately needed a fast, entirely invisible way to move large sums of value. And not just across the cell block, but out into the free world. Which brings us to the massive twist in today's explainer. To solve that exact problem, they built the digital banking system entirely out of thin air. Welcome to Section 3, the currency that isn't there, the rise of the dots.
Okay, get this. The secret currency became a 14-digit code. Originally, you'd scratch this code off the back of a green dot money pack prepaid card. But the absolute genius here is that the physical plastic card, totally useless. Inside, it meant nothing. The string of numbers, just that 14-digit code was the money. It became this completely untraceable digital token of value that everyone on the inside just called dots.
Let me walk you through how this actually works as a banking loop, because it's fascinating. Step 1. An inmate's cousin on the outside goes to a CVS, buys a $500 money pack with cash, and texts that 14-digit code to the inmate on a smuggled contraband cell phone. Step 2. That inmate, let's call him Inmate A, now essentially holds $500 of digital dots. He uses that code to instantly settle a massive debt with Inmate B. No physical handoff, no guard sees a single thing. Step 3. Inmate B then texts that exact same code to his sister on the outside. She punches the code into a website, loads the $500 onto her own prepaid debit card, and walks up to an ATM to withdraw the cash. Boom. Via a couple of hidden text messages, money moved from the free world into a maximum security prison, changed hands, and went right back out, completely off the official books.
It is a brilliant, totally frictionless system. But, as with literally any unregulated financial market, human nature eventually takes over. Let's look at the darker side of this in Section 4, Wall Street behind bars, predatory loans, and futures markets.
So that exact same ingenuity that built the invisible network of dots also spawned a super aggressive predatory lending market. The absolute classic vehicle for this is known as the 2 for 3. An inmate who is desperate for goods right now will borrow 2 soups today with the rock-solid promise that they will pay back 3 soups the second commissary deliveries drop next week.
I mean, just pause and do the math on that for a second. That is a 50% interest rate. And we are not talking about 50% annually, like some terrible maxed-out credit card. We're talking 50% over a week or two. If an inmate gets trapped in that debt cycle and defaults, well, there's no bankruptcy court to bail them out. The market strictly regulates itself through reputation and, frankly, the very real threat of physical violence.
And honestly, the sophistication goes way beyond just simple loans. It expands into full-blown prison futures markets. Sports betting is absolutely massive inside. But how do you put $20 down on Sunday's football game when your actual physical commissary order of Max doesn't arrive until Thursday? Simple. You trade in futures. Inmates literally write IOUs, promising the delivery of future assets, goods they do not even possess yet, on a later date. They are leveraging their future liquidity, mirroring the exact same mechanics of Wall Street derivatives, just backed by macro pouches instead of corporate stocks. It's wild.
Now, naturally, the authorities aren't just sitting there blind to all this. It's a relentless, ongoing cat-and-mouse game. Wardens will order these massive facility sweeps just to confiscate the contraband cell phones that power this whole text message banking system. Prisons are even testing biometric payment systems now, tying commissary accounts straight to an inmate's fingerprint to completely kill the physical exchange of goods. But the Ghost network is decentralized. When Green Dot eventually caught on and killed off their physical scratch-off cards to close this exact loophole, the inmates didn't stop. They just migrated to new digital payment ecosystems. The specific brand names change, but the invisible system completely survives.
So the real takeaway here is summarized perfectly by this quote. You can lock a person in a cage, but you can't lock away basic economic principles. This entire shadow economy proves, without a doubt, that restrictive, super high-fee official systems do not stop human commerce. Actually, scratch that. They don't just fail to stop it. They actively create and incentivize the exact ingenious black markets they're supposed to prevent. When you take away physical cash, people will just synthesize it out of ramen noodles. When you build a walled garden of heavily monitored accounts, they'll just build an invisible banking network in the digital ether.
Which leaves us with this final kind of lingering thought to close out today's explainer. In a system explicitly designed for total top-down control, is the emergence of a black market not just likely but totally inevitable? Is this mind-blowing financial ingenuity just a crime to be punished, or is it a raw survival mechanism that we really need to understand? It's a deeply fascinating question about human nature and how economics actually work. Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden world of the ghost money banking system, make sure to subscribe for more explainers where we uncover the shadow economies operating right beneath the surface of our everyday world. Let us know what you think about this wild system in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.